Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Farhana Farati Maksum. My matrix number is 1220773 and today I will present about case review on Malayan Credit Limited versus Mohammed Kasim. What is hire purchase? The term hire purchase refers to an arrangement for buying expensive goods. In a hire purchase agreement, the buyer makes an initial down payment and pays the remaining balance plus interest as in installment. The term is commonly used in the United Kingdom and is more commonly known as installment plan in United States. I will begin with the fact about the case. The case of Malayan Credit Limited versus Mohammed Kasim revolved around a financial dispute in which Malaysia and Malayan Credit Limited as the plaintiff extended a loan or credit facility to Mohammed Kasim as the defendant. The agreement between two parties stipulated the terms of repayment and other conditions associated with the financial arrangements. However, the plaintiff alleged that the defendant failed to comply with these terms, including the repayment of the borrowed amount. Consequently, Malayan Credit Limited initiated legal proceeding to recover the outstanding debt. The case highlights a common conflict in creditor-debtor relationship, where the plaintiff seek the court interventions to enforce the agreement and assure repayment. Next, we go to the issue about the case. In this case, I'll find three issues, which is breach the financial agreement, second, validity and enforceability, and lastly, the defendant is fully liable. The primary issue in this case is whether Mohammed Kasim breached the financial agreement he entered into with Malayan Credit Limited. This encompasses an analysis of his failure to meet repayment obligations and other violations of the term outlined in the agreement. Another critical issue is the validity and enforceability of the financial agreement. The court must be determined whether the terms of the contract align with the relevant legal principle and whether they can be upheld in this case. And lastly, the question of liability is central, whether the defendant is fully liable for the amount claimed by the plaintiff, including any associated interest or penalties stipulated in the agreement. Next, we go to the judgment. The judgment in this case will focus on several key aspects. First, the court will assess whether the defendant breached the financial agreement by failing to meet the repayment obligations or other terms. This will involve examining the evidence presented by both parties, including the original agreement, payment record, and any correspondence regarding to alleged breach. Second, the court will evaluate whether the agreement is valid and enforceable under the applicable law. If the agreement is found to be legally sound, the court will decide on the quantum of repayment owed by the defendant. This may include not only the principal but also interest charges and penalty if specific in the contract. The court ruling will also take into account any mitigating factor raised by the defendant, such as potential procedural irregularities and unforeseen circumstances. In addition, the court ruled in favor of the plaintiff, Malayan Credit Limited, by dismissing the defendant's counterclaim. The judgment indicates that the court found the plaintiff's claim to be valid and supported by the fact. The defendant also counterclaim was deemed to lack merit or sufficient evidence. And lastly, as a result, the plaintiff successfully upheld its position in the dispute. Now, we go to the case analysis. This case underscores the importance of having clear legally binding agreement in financial transaction. A well-drafted contract reduces ambiguity and provides a solid foundation for resolving dispute. For creditor like Malayan Credit Limited, the case highlights the significance of monitoring repayment schedule and taking timely action in the event of a breach. On the other hand, for debtor like Mohammed Kasim, the case serves a reminder of the need to fully understand contractual obligations and ensure adherence to avoid legal consequences. The court's analysis will likely consider not only the terms of the agreement, but also the broader principle of fairness and equity. From a legal perspective, the case brings attention to enforceability of contract in creditor-debtor relationship. The judgment could potentially set a precedent regarding how courts interpret and enforce financial agreement in similar situations. Furthermore, the case serves as an example of the legal protection available to creditor, ensuring that debt recovery process are upheld within the framework of the law. It also emphasizes the need for debtor to communicate with the creditor proactively if financial difficulties arise, potentially avoiding escalation to legal dispute. Now, we go to the opinion regarding from the case. The case of Malayan Credit Limited versus Mohammed Kasim highlight the critical importance of honoring financial agreement to maintain trust in creditor-debtor relationship. Malayan Credit Limited took appropriate steps to recover the debt owed, reflecting its responsibility to protect its financial interests. However, the defendant reason for the breach, such as financial hardship or unforeseen circumstances, may warrant consideration by the court to ensure fairness. This case emphasizes the need for clear, enforceable agreement and mutual understanding of obligation to prevent dispute. While creditors must ensure transparent terms, debtors should fully understand their commitment and communicate proactively in case of difficulty. The court rule is to balance contract enforcement with fairness, ensuring that penalty or repayment term. Ultimately, this case serves as a reminder of the importance of financial literacy, transparency, and accountability in such agreement. And lastly, we go to the conclusion from the case. The case of Malayan Credit Limited versus Mohammed Kasim revolve around the enforcement of a financial agreement and the obligations of the debtor to fulfill repayment term. The court's judgment will address key issues such as the breach of the contract, the validity of the agreement, and the extent of the defendant liability. The case provides valuable lesson for both creditor and debtor regarding the importance of clear agreement, adherence to terms, and timely communication. Ultimately, the ruling will offer insight into how courts balance contractual enforcement with principle of equity and fairness in creditor-debtor relationship. That's all from me. Thank you. And Assalamualaikum.